I'm Sean Thompson. I'm the nation's leading expert on mortgages featuring renovation financing. And this is the Renovation Rundown. So, Troy Fairchild, we talk a lot, number one, and when we do, it kind of always merges into this conversation about how we can help the industry do more business, right? And some of those conversations are really, really great, and kind of selfless too. And what I love most about you is you're like at the center of a lot of the action in renovation lending at a national level, but you're kind of an unsung hero about it, right? So, how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great. So, I thought it'd be sensible to get you on the show. Thanks for coming.
Yeah.
And maybe kind of talk about some of the things that we kind of talk about offline about helping the industry
Yeah.
and some of the things that you're doing in your world to do so. And I thought I'd start out, by really leaning into the standardization thing. Why is that important from your end, and the things that we're doing? Because I think it's kind of like, I don't want to use McDonald's or any other franchise as an example, but people expect the same service or the same outcome lender to lender, and they really don't get it, right? When it comes
Yeah.
to renovation loans. And tell me what you're doing to try and make that a little bit better.
So we're doing a lot, but so this conversation, Sean, this really goes back years for us. If you remember in New Jersey, we kind of got a round table together. Some of us joked about getting the 5 families together. It turned into a lot bigger meeting than I think either of us expected, right?
Yep.
But before that, we sent out a survey asking, lenders, consultants, everybody about standardization. And something that was surprising was how overwhelmingly everybody from the lender, consultant, the field specialist sides, everybody agreed that standardization was something that was important, right? I think standardization, there's a few aspects to it. We could talk about the standardization of documents, right? But there's also standardization of processes, and we could talk for a lot longer than 30 minutes.
So let's I'm going to go back and maybe not skip over the basics here, but for those that may not understand, for example, HUD consultants who need to be a part of 203K standards,
Yep.
right? All have a different approach to the way that they give us what's called the work write-up, their sort of estimate of what the project should cost. So the lender has some safety valve on that.
Yeah.
But every HUD consultant does it differently, right?
Exactly.
And so part of the challenge in the lending industry is how do you build a process where you're running into a uniquely different business model and every HUD consultant, and you're trying to smooth that out. So I just wanted to be a little elementary and first to sort of define standardization. Sorry.
Yeah. So yeah, and that was a good explanation, and to kind of use some examples, right? So you might have a consultant in one area who's used to working with a certain lender, and they get in habits of doing things a certain way. They're providing, a certain doc set. Then they have another lender that comes in and they're asking for different documents that maybe that consultant's never had to supply before. And then also just something as simple, like one of the things I harped on back in New Jersey before COVID and everything we got together was something as basic as a standard packet that these consultants send to the lender, right? Imagine, Sean, if you got a report from every consultant around the country and it was cover page, SOR, HOCA, like it was just a standard form. Every time you got that, you know exactly where to go look for it, right? But when every consultant around the country is sending you a different package, right, in a different order, different documents, and you're going through there, something's missing, it's all in different orders. So you're like, did I miss it? So there's a lot of time suck, I think, that goes into not having standardization around this. And we can't just blame the consultants on that, right? Or the field inspectors. Every lender is a little bit different. Everybody has a different legal team. Everybody's comfortable with different levels of risk, right? So, the legal teams might come in and say, okay, on our HOCA, we want to put this little verbiage or put our logo at the top, right? Well, if every
Right.
consultant is using, a standard software and they have a HOCA in there, but every lender wants a different tweak on it or a different logo, it can make it hard for that consultant to go and work with 20 different lenders because they're always trying to remember, okay, what does this guy want? Right. So I think it's not something that can be solved from, the lender side or the consultant side. I think it's an industry thing that we have to talk about and try to get to. And that's just one example,
Well,
right?
yeah, I mean, you sort of took the standardization need
Mhm.
and designed this whole, and I didn't bring up your company, Renovation Lending Software, but you designed this whole environment in which we can all play in, right?
Yeah.
And bring this standardization to life, lender to lender, consultant to consultant, borrower to borrower, contractor to contractor, right?
Yep.
And that's why I say you're kind of in the middle of the mix, but it's kind of an unsung hero around making renovation lending a lot easier lender to lender. Otherwise, we wouldn't touch nearly as many customers in my thought.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and there's more to it, right? Like I can create the perfect software, right? I could go out and build you every single tool you could ever ask for as a lender or a consultant. I can tie you guys together so it makes things more efficient. But there's also things that are just like simple overlays or I guess ways that one lender does something to another that the software is not going to solve, right? For example, if you guys go out and decide to do an upfront draw, right? It's pretty simple. It's pretty standard these days that people will do a little upfront draw. Well, a lot of lenders have a good process for if they do that, sending out, to the consultant or the draw specialist, here's what we, paid out as a material draw. Here's what it went to. A lot of lenders, one, don't tell the consultant at all or the field specialist who the or what, that they did a material draw. And sometimes when they do it, they just say, hey, we did a material draw for 30,000. And they don't tell them what items to apply it to. So then the consultant's left trying to guess, okay, here's what I would have applied it to or whatever. Right. So something as simple, even standardizing and training the industry on that. If you do a material draw, if the lender's deciding to do it, assign where that money is going and then let that consultant know up front. Because a lot of times what happens is you end up on draw 3 and then the consultant's getting an email back from the lender saying, wait, you're overdrawing against, masonry or
Well,
you're
you bring up a good point there, right? And a lender without something like what you offer, or well, something like what you offer, perpetuates the nightmare stories out there for customers and realtors and loan officers because if you don't have a systematic way of creating an environment for the accounting, for the inspections, so on and so just the manufacturing practice, right? It's a nightmare. It's a
yeah,
nightmare. And I've seen some really crazy, you got a rental loan at this mortgage company or bank, and it's their like fifth one, and they don't have a system and they don't have an environment. Good luck.
yeah.
Good luck.
Now I see it all. You bring up a good point too, right? Like, so I guess I take it for granted, right? Everybody that uses our system, it's easy to click a button and say, okay, here's our material draw. This is what we applied it to. Click a button and send a draw form over to the consultant so they know right away. They can reconcile. They can even push it over to them through the system if they use us. But yeah, if they're using Excel sheets, to try to track all that, and maybe they're even rougher than that, just sending it over to accounting. A lot of times you'll see where they don't look at the repair budget versus contingency versus the soft costs and really separate those as they're drawing money against each one. I've seen a lot of lenders that we go in and start working with, and they're lumping all that stuff together. And it's like, well, here's our $110,000, and we're just drawing against that, making sure we don't overdraw against the main thing. But there's more to it than that. You should really be making sure you don't overdraw against any individual line item or your contingency or those soft costs. So having that, that detail of accounting in our world is extremely important.
Yeah, I mean, look, you're taking what I described earlier, that individual HUD consultant or contractor
Mhm.
that does business their own unique way and
Yeah.
feeding it through your system, and it comes out a reliable standard process that lenders can count on. and
Yeah.
that runs downstream to the customer, so they can predict. So the loan officer can predict to the realtor and customer what's going to happen in the transaction. And
Yeah.
that's the importance of it if you follow down what you do downstream. Without that, it's an unpredictable mess. We don't know what we're going to get from the consultant. We don't know what we're going to get from the contractor. We don't know what forms should look like what, and the forms piece with you is really, really good because it standardizes the forms because a lot of lenders don't know what forms they need.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's another good topic, right? So when we first met years ago, I was so fixated on standardization, right? And I built the software out the best that I could, around like how you and other people I worked with were, running this program. Um, I think what I realized really quickly though was I had to adapt the software. And even though I wanted to be standardized and have here's the doc sets that we know everybody needs, you could go in and click a button and generate those, send them out for signature. Well, everybody's a little bit different. So we took a huge investment in our company and tweaked it to where every lender, if they do have a different doc, if they want to tweak that HOCA, they can ignore our docs. They can put their own docs into our system and still have them autofill and still be able to just click a button, send them out for signature, have all the tracking. So as much as I still believe in standardization, we've also accepted there's going to be those tweaks. So we've made everything a lot more flexible, even inside of our system, right? So even though we're talking about standardization and everybody agrees how important it is, we even realize and accept the fact that we have to be more full, just as a
Well, I
tool.
mean, look, we could talk about standardization in a sense like, or I can draw an analogy, right?
Yeah.
Standardization could be you need to post on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram to be successful. That's standardization.
Yeah.
But not everybody's going to post the exact same thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you get to the flexibility of the standardization, right, in your world.
Sure.
So
It's good.
that's why it's important. Another thing I wanted to talk to, let me transition a little bit, right? So we got what you do and what you're bringing to the industry, but it's not just that, right? Because we talk and we've took some action to find ways to elevate the entire industry, whether it's around touching customers
Yeah.
or marketing or lobbying on behalf of renovation lenders and contractors and underwriters in this space,
Yeah.
with our government, right? With our organizations, you helped to found NARL, the National Association of Renovation Lenders, right? Which was a huge endeavor on your part. That was a lot of time, but as you mentioned, you pulled together a lot of folks, got us all in the room. I mean, I'm sure every HUD consultant watching this video is going to go, I do things my way because my way works, right? But you got us all in the same room and made it all kind of happen, where we got to discuss what's going to be best for all of us to bring these needed products out to consumers in spite of loan officers and realtors and lenders who don't think this is a good idea for some reason. Right. And I know I probably get some heat for saying that, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, where do you want me to go with that? You got my mind on 10 different things there.
Well, just there's so let's talk about the kind of the inspection piece of it, like the back end
Uh,
part of it, the front end and the standardization. Tell me what's been happening with you guys in terms of, because I know there's improvements on while you're in the middle of the project, let's say,
yeah.
what your company does to help out with that.
Yeah. So part of me feels like it is always a moving target, right? We're every month we're trying to push updates, to try to help you guys out on the streets. I do have a background in the mortgage industry, so I've been in your seat. I've been a producer. But one of the cool things is I do have this vantage point of being able to see what the consultants are going through. I see what the draw processors are going through. I see what the front end looks like because we work with everybody from pre-closing to post-closing, right? And so it's always a moving target of adding new features, and especially with the government going in and changing certain things. And I think we're supposed to be getting some announcements here soon, right? that could affect us quite a bit. So I'm always looking at how to make you guys more successful, not just from the lender side, but if you have a better way to get a draw done faster, right? And there's a lot of
Hmm.
technologies out here now looking at, hey, we can turn these draws faster. Maybe we're just doing pictures, maybe we do need the consultant or whatever the next big thing is to try to make this better. And we take the approach of let's work with everybody, right? Instead of just trying to be a competitor, we've taken people who could be considered competitors and done tie-ins with them, right? So you can go through and order inspections right from them, even if you don't want to use a consultant. But then we're also taking the approach of we want to make these guys that have been consultants for 20, 30 years that are really good. They have a really good process, and maybe they're just in one little market. So how do we make it so they on non 203K deals can provide you that same value, in other markets around the country. So one of the things that we've done is we've taken our software from more of a mom and pop inspector to we're working on making that more of an enterprise level, right? So if there's somebody that you really like to work with, again, on non-Ks, and they have a solid process, you could go to them, send a work order over to them. They'll have their tie-ins with you, and they can use their, I guess, army out on the streets to be able to add better value to you guys. So it's a really different approach. When we first came up with this thing like 10 years ago and built out that piece of it, it was more geared toward just a mom and pop. But depending on what the government, decides moving forward with the future, and if they,
Are you referring to the HUD changes, the
yeah,
proposed
so like let's
203K changes that we think are going to happen?
yeah, like let's say tomorrow, I don't think this will happen tomorrow, but let's say if tomorrow or next week or next year, they got rid of the requirement for a HUD consultant altogether, right? And it was more about a company that met the, certain standards instead of an individual, right? We want to be prepared for whatever the future is going to bring for us. So we're always adapting, we're always moving, sometimes we throw a lot of money at something, building a feature, and it doesn't work out, and then we move to the next thing. But we're
Hmm.
always trying to adapt and add new things to try to make everything better and think about the future.
No, and what I love is you're still approachable. Um, Not from a small lender perspective. There's a lot of giant companies that do construction management, and they're in this space, but you're not tiny but approachable to the small lender who wants to do this right, and only has X size audience.
Yeah,
Like you're one of the only games in town that does it in the way that you do it, and make it approachable, and I don't want to use the word affordable for small lenders, but you're there in that space, and probably the number one, for that size lender, I would say.
yeah. So every lender, when they're getting into it, is going to start small, right? And then they could end up huge. And some people want to outsource one piece. They maybe only use us for pre-closing, right? That's where they need it, and then they're going to sell it to a correspondent lender. Maybe it's the correspondent lender, that's using us, and they don't have a lot of retail, but they're taking all these things and just need the post-closing. So by really taking that approach again of listening to the customer and trying to fix the entire industry instead of looking at just one little piece of it, like draw
Yeah.
management,
Yeah.
right? Draw management's one little thing, right? When
Mhm.
you look at this whole program, right? So you really got to back up and look at it, from that 100,000-foot view to be able to say, okay, this is where there's a breakdown here. Okay, there's a breakdown here. We can make it better and try to make everything kind of flow, right?
Well, we know there's nothing perfect about a construction project. If you've ever seen an episode of Property Brothers, you at least learn that, right?
Right.
So I'm happy to get some time with you, Troy. If I had to describe your perfect customer, tell them, what it is and kind of where to find you.
So really anybody who's doing renovation, doing construction, we have lenders that come in and use us for all their escrow holdbacks just to kind of track all that. So really just anybody looking to get more organization in their, company, whether it's pre-closing or post-closing, so that they can manage either more volume with less people, or just try to take the people they have and manage more volume, right? You're a perfect fit for us. If you're an inspector that's doing a lot of draws for these lenders. We have a standalone software just for you guys as well. So yeah, either one of those would be great customers for us.
Well, there you have it, folks. I mean, a little bit in the weeds industry wise, but man, you are very influential in renovation lending. I'm happy to know you. I'm happy to get the chance to talk to you as often as I am.
Well,
So, Troy
back at
Fairchild,
you.
folks, hey, if you're a loan officer looking to sell these products, or a realtor looking to leverage them, or most importantly, you're a customer that wants to buy and remodel, or maybe remodel your current place, no matter where you are in the U.S., my team would love to hear from you. So don't wait for the right opportunity. As I like to say, customize it. We'll see you soon, friends. Troy Fairchild. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you. Thanks, everybody.